The man who fell into the water. The river was cold. It was early morning, and the mist still clung to the banks like a thin white blanket. The man had crossed that path many times before, so he did not notice the slickness of the stones beneath his feet. One careless step, one sudden slip, and he plunged into the rushing water. The current seized him at once. It pulled at his clothes, spun him around, and stole the breath from his lungs. The river was not cruel, but it was powerful, and power can feel like cruelty when you are the one being carried away. Panic rose in his chest. "You're finished," whispered fear. His arms flailed. His legs kicked wildly. For a moment, he thought only of the cold, the depth, and the terrible force dragging him downstream. Then, beneath the noise of fear, another voice spoke. "Do not fight the river with fear. Find your balance." The man stopped struggling blindly. He forced himself to breathe. He let his body float for a moment instead of sinking into panic. He turned his face toward the sky, waited for the current to loosen its grip, and then began to move with careful, steady strokes toward the shore. It took all his strength, but at last his hand touched the rocks. He pulled himself out of the water, soaked through, trembling, and exhausted. He lay there for a long moment, listening to the river rush past him as if nothing had happened. Then he smiled. A traveler who had seen the whole thing from the bank hurried over and asked, "Why are you smiling? You nearly drowned." The man looked at the river, then at his own shaking hands, and said, "The water did not defeat me. My fear almost did." The traveler remembered those words for the rest of his life. From that day on, people in the village spoke of the man as if he were fearless. They said he was made of iron. They said danger could not touch him. They said he had the heart of a hero. But they were wrong. He was not fearless. He still felt fear when thunder cracked across the hills. He still felt fear when illness entered his home. He still felt fear when he stood before angry men, when his crops failed, when his plans collapsed, and when the people he loved were hurt. The difference was that fear no longer ruled him. He had learned something greater than courage. He had learned calmness. Years later, when life brought him another trial, he remembered the river. The first came in the season of storms. A fierce wind tore through the valley and flattened the wheat fields. Roofs were damaged, fences were broken, and the villagers ran about in confusion. Some shouted at the sky. Some blamed one another. Some sat in despair, certain that the year was lost. The man walked through the wreckage slowly. He did not pretend the damage was small. He did not deny the pain of it. But he gathered his neighbors and said, "A storm has passed through our lives. We cannot stop what has already happened, but we can decide what to do next." So they worked together. They repaired roofs, saved what grain they could, and planted again where the earth was still willing. The village did not recover in a day, but it recovered because someone remained steady when others were shaken. One old woman watched him and said, "You speak as if the storm never frightened you." He answered, "It frightened me deeply. But fear is a visitor. It does not have to become the master of the house." The old woman nodded, and from then on she repeated his words to anyone who would listen. Another time, the man was betrayed by someone he trusted. A friend had promised to help him with a difficult journey, but when the time came, the friend took the supplies and left without warning. The man was left alone on the road with little food and a long distance still ahead. Resonated with you? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey. Stay with us for more timeless wisdom, and remember, virtue, wisdom, unmoved. See you in the next story.